Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
It's going good. We have another busy week. We better get into it. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first thing we wanted to get into, since this is NBA All-Star Week, is Zoop. They're going to be doing some things at the event. So we caught up with Rob, and he is the head of outreach and partnerships at Zoop. So listen in. Can you remind us what Zoop is building again?
Yeah, for sure. So Zoop is we're a digital collectible 3D trading card platform for creators, right? So we're bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 by essentially connecting creators and fans through community and card collections. So we take care of creating, the entire process of building the avatars on behalf of the creators. We've got a really great, unique kind of style that we've been building them out in through our internal development team. And then we're creating the trading cards for the creators, dropping them and making this a really accessible platform, essentially, for the fans of these creators to come on and engage with them. It's been really important to us that you don't need to be experienced in the world of crypto or any of that sort of stuff to be able to engage with the Zoop platform and with your favorite creators and celebrities.
So speaking of celebrities, what are the main benefits for celebrities choosing to join Zoop?
Good question. So there's a number of main benefits. I guess the first one is being the monetization for creators, right? So they're able to monetize their fan engagement and their digital trading cards on Zoop. And then they're also able to generate subscriptions. So we offer 70% of the revenue that's generated through card revenue goes directly to the creators, and 80% of the subscriptions generated on the platform from the community go straight to the creators. It's also worth noting this is a non-exclusive IP deal, right? So the creators maintain full control over their content, over their IP. We merely use that to create their likeness and their avatar. And I guess the last point there would be it's a way for them to reward their fan bases as well, right? They can give back and engage and interact with their fan bases by offering incentives, access to exclusive events, rewards, early access tickets, virtual meet and greets, Q&As, and things like that. So there's a number of real benefits there.
Yeah, I really think it's important to empower creators like that. So that's fantastic. Rob, I also hear that you have something going on with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Can you give us some details around that?
We do. So we've got a really exciting weekend coming up, actually. So we're attending the NBA All-Star Weekend summit event, which runs this weekend, 17th to the 19th of February in Salt Lake City, Utah. So the business inside the game was founded by the two-time NBA All-Star and serial entrepreneur, Barron Davis. So we're heading over there. We're taking part in the Web3 showcase. We're going to be showcasing a live AR photo booth activation. So attendees are going to be able to have their photo taken with an AR version of a Zoop avatar and Barron Davis's avatar as well. So it's going to be an amazing way to demonstrate and showcase the metaverse capabilities of the Zoop avatars. And then in addition to that, the Zoop CEO RJ is going to be taking place in a couple of different panels and fireside chats as well over the weekend, which are all going to be centered around discussing sports, lifestyle, culture, tech, and Web3.
It sounds like a great way to showcase your platform. Good luck with that, Rob, and thank you so much for swinging by and giving us some details.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Anytime.
All right, Zep, and of course, their tech stack is built on Hedera. Do you have any thoughts about what we're seeing coming out of Zoop?
Yeah, I mean, they've been, I think the announcement came out 3 or 4 months ago. And, they've been silently building in that time, silently sort of collating a body of influencers, a body of, sportsmen, sportswomen, so on and so forth, so that they have a proper ecosystem of creators on their platform in anticipation of that official launch. And so, of course, we're seeing at the NBA All-Star Weekend with Brian Davis, who is now onboarded onto Zoop, or at least it'll be going live across this weekend. And so that's a very high caliber influencer. And, that reflects the caliber of the leadership of Zoop itself. You've got RJ and you've got Tim Stokely, the two guys that set up OnlyFans, which of course we know how went to a global phenomenon, a global success, and they became $1 billion unicorn under that leadership. And so this is them breaching into Web3, where obviously, these guys are at the forefront of innovation within this kind of social technology. They've seen the potential of Web3 in enabling this creator economy, and they've seen the potential of Hedera, the efficiencies of Hedera, as being the real platform to enable that future. So, this is the start. They're collecting all their influences together. I believe RJ or Tim, they're also doing a panel at NBA Allstars talking about merging Web 2.5 to Web 3 in sort of the sports industry. So, there's going to be some good coverage of the platform, hopefully some of Hedera as well. And this looks like, this is them sort of coming to the world and showing their platform. So I'm looking forward to the launch. I think that's probably a couple months out still, but this is them really sort of showing it off to the world. So great to see them bringing this caliber of person on board again.
Yeah, exciting to see. And staying in the metaverse, we also have LG Art Lab at Frieze Art Fair in LA. They have their flagship NFT creator, Barry Ball, there, and he actually had a shout out for the Hedera community.
So, first of all, a big thanks from me to the Hedera community for supporting this project, which is something radical and new for me, but it's been just a blast. And we're all hoping for a great reception. So far, I'm getting a lot of good strokes here, so that's cool.
So that was great to see Barry Ball shouting out the Hedera community. We know that the LG Art Lab have been building. We know they've been doing it quite quietly. We know they've had some drops, and to see them all at Frieze together, repping Hedera like that is really exciting to me. Especially when you see the caliber. I keep saying this word caliber. I think I'm doing it every week now. Of individual alongside Barry Ball is Damien Hirst. So Damien Hirst was also at Frieze LA. His work was being showcased there. HBAR Foundation actually put up a photo of one of his stained glass works with these butterflies series in this sort of, geometric shape, sort of stained glass mirror, which is a physical piece of artwork next to some of Barry's physical sculptures as well. And as I've heard internally from the foundation, Damien is actually a collector of Barry Ball's work. I don't know if that's an NFT side of things or if that's the sculptures. I don't have the information there, but they know each other. Barry Ball, his work is collected by Damien Hirst. And so that in itself shows the caliber of Barry, but also in a space like Frieze LA, see, a modern master artist like Damien Hirst alongside a very, very well-regarded sculptor like Barry Ball, and having HBAR NFTs next to a work by Damien Hirst. I think that's really cool to see, If that isn't a seal of approval of Barry Ball's work, but also the LG Art Lab and the fundamental technology Hedera that enables that, then I don't know what is. That's fine art in the traditional sense alongside HBAR NFTs. And that's just really great to see, and a testament to the LG Art Lab team there, and of course Barry.
And speaking of LG Art Lab, I actually just put out an interview with the LG Art Lab management team, so certainly check that out today. And we'll move from the metaverse into refi. We had some news that came out of the HBAR Foundation about virtual power exchange, and I'll pull a little bit from their blog that they put out. They said, "We're excited to announce that the Virtual Power Exchange VPE, the first digital energy exchange platform for real-time matching and settlement of generation and consumption of transactions between retail users, has selected Hedera as their DLT of choice. Currently, market participants are required to have at least 1 megawatt hour of energy to participate in wholesale energy markets. This means that the market today is largely dominated by public utilities and large power generators. Through the VPE platform, the new sub-megawatt hour distributed energy market will be created, in turn digitizing, decentralizing, democratizing, and decarbonizing the power grid and grid management." And to give everybody some context about how large this market could be, Navigant, they're a consulting company, said over the next 6 years, Navigant estimates that the distributed energy services and energy service market opportunity is $2 trillion. So this is huge, Zep.
Definitely. I think one of the most exciting things about this for me is that, this is distributed ledger technology in action, giving real world value to the real world. It's like a lot of people say that there's this idea that, Web3 solves everything and whatever. And there's instances where, traditional systems work just as well without DLT. But this is clearly one that is absolutely inexorably linked. Its success is linked to distributed ledger technology. To have a distributed energy market, i.e. a peer-to-peer energy market where users can trade, retail users can trade sub kilowatt hours energy on this open market. That's blockchain in its truest form, enabling deeper liquidity to these markets through greater market participation, but also even enabling users who have their own solar panels or electric vehicles or whatever it might be to be able to participate. It's this kind of idea of this circular economy, that even at the lowest level, users can now get inside this economy and really participate. And of course, that's only made possible by Hedera, and even more importantly, they're the Guardian. And that Guardian infrastructure, maintained and managed by Envision Blockchain, it is best in class. I say this every time we talk about ReFi on Hedera, but is it best in class for facilitating the sustainability markets on distributed ledgers. Publicly, there are a lot of users already announced, but there's just so much interest in this piece of open source infrastructure. I even speaking to Wes recently, his LinkedIn every day is just stacked with people asking him questions about it. And this isn't Web3 folk, this is Web2 folk who are looking to enter this market because they know that it can be improved by distributed ledger technology. There is no Guardian without Hedera. They're all moving towards the Guardian. And, I believe that ReFi on Hedera is probably going to be one of the biggest things that comes out of our ecosystem. And we're really seeing it in its nascency, but starting to accelerate. And so, yeah, VPE, massive piece of news for our ReFi ecosystem. And not just our ecosystem, but for sustainability as a whole. I think one crucial statistic that they mentioned was that this energy market, this distributed energy market, will reduce carbon emissions by up to 40%, which is just staggering. It's amazing. And Hedera, of course, is underneath all of that. So yeah, a great piece of news for the sustainability ecosystem.
And VPE sounds an awful lot like Power Transitions, which we heard about a few years ago. I don't think they ever actually made it to market, but it does show that when there's a good idea, something that has good market fit, that if one team doesn't actually bring it to market, there's going to be another team right behind them to pick up the baton when you have good ideas and good market fits like this. We also saw a fair amount come out of DOVU lately. Do you have any information on that?
So DOVU's adoption has been sort of mooning over the last few days. I think their accounts have gone up about 3,000 day by day. And, that's all for all sorts of reasons, least of all them being an amazing team. There's been people outside of the ecosystem that are noticing how strong sustainability is. They saw that, DOVU was offsetting the carbon at the Hedera House at the World Economic Forum. They know that the foundation works closely with DOVU. They know that DOVU are continuing to build. So there's been a lot of interest moving into DOVU over the last week. And, that's great to see. They're a great team. And I look forward to seeing them continue their role in the ReFi ecosystem, as a leader.
Yeah, they're doing a great job across the board. And another team that's making some waves is one of the Hedera Governing Council members, and that's DLA Piper. We saw something come out of the Middle East. So the Dubai-focused Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority has created a new regulatory framework specific to virtual assets in collaboration with law firm DLA Piper. And I'm not exactly sure how Toko is involved, but I'm sure they're taking the lead on this within DLA Piper. The managing director at Vara said, the global team of legal and regulatory experts that DLA Piper was able to dedicate to this effort has made them reliable partners throughout this journey. We look forward to being able to establish regulatory standards that offer cross-border interoperability so that the global business community is able to accelerate maturity across this game-changing industry. Yeah, Zep, so this is where we start to see enterprises that are using Hedera that may not even know it. Of course, Toko is a fully owned subsidiary of DLA Piper. They use Hedera within their tech stack. So this Vara may not even know that they're utilizing Hedera when they're utilizing Toko, but they are. So what were your thoughts about this news?
I think for me, it's like tokenization as an industry is so nascent, and it's clearly going to happen. It's clearly happening in front of us with Aberdeen, with DLA Piper, and so on and so forth. The regulatory side of it is still in a slight grey area. But to see DLA Piper, i.e. a global law firm, i.e. a governing council member, i.e. who have two very strong HBAR barons within them, Scott and Andy, to see them pushing these regulations with a regulatory body like of that caliber in Dubai is just so bullish. They are clearly one of the leaders in this field. They're leading this kind of real world tokenization, and for them to be pioneering the regulation, that's really exciting for us. I think all this stuff has to be done within a legal system, and to have the lawyers there knowing what they're doing, with Hedera is only going to set the blueprint for the rest of the builders in the Hedera ecosystem and beyond.
Yeah, no question about that. And shifting over from general TradFi into payments, we saw something come out from Now Payments. Now, I don't have too much information on this, but when I initially saw Now Payments, I thought ServiceNow. Now, I'm not sure if they're actually associated, but the tweet that they had started out with a question: payments for your business with Hedera. HBAR is a cost-effective solution with low transaction fees of only 1/100th of a cent and quite a large community. With Now Payments, you can cut down on expenses with the lowest fees on the market per transaction. Did you catch this one's up?
Yeah, so on the ServiceNow front, I think they are different companies. I think Now Payments is based in the Netherlands. I think that I'm not entirely sure what they're doing there. But it's great to see, that just making the on-ramping into the Hedera ecosystem as frictionless as possible. That was the objective of the Crypto Economy Fund. And the more providers we have enabling Hedera as a payment, enabling people to onboard onto HBAR or on-ramp on, is good news each time. So yeah, making our ecosystem more accessible there, and the more of that, the better.
So it's great to see that we're getting more players in the Hedera payment space, but we're also continuing to build out the general infrastructure. Hedera's premier bridge, Hashport, added a couple additional networks this week with Optimism and Arbitrum. And that's another thing where Hedera is kind of in the background, because of course, Hedera is one of the main platforms that they serve, but they serve several different platforms. But Hedera is actually part of their tech stack as well. So we're going to talk to Jesse from Hashport next week and get a little bit more information, get a refresher on exactly how they work. So that was good to see. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Arbitrum and Optimism, they're taking off quite well at the moment. They've been trending a lot over the last couple of weeks. So it's definitely a timely integration. And hopefully we'll be able to capitalize on that momentum with our own DeFi ecosystem. But I mean, just talking to Hashport in general, I actually used Hashport early last week to port some USDC on Hedera into USDC on Ethereum straight into my MetaMask, and I forgot how easy it was. They've actually upgraded, they've updated their UX since I last used the Hashport itself. Obviously, Hashport is used a lot within the DeFi ecosystem, through SourceSwap, etc. But this is the first time I've done it directly through their websites in a while, and it was fantastic. Kudos to the team. They've enabled us to do exactly what we needed, is to branch into other ecosystems and have them branch into ours, so we can move that liquidity around. So yeah, just hats off to Hashport. They're a real solid piece of infrastructure for our DeFi ecosystem, undoubtedly.
Agreed, absolutely. And another team that is building Web3 infrastructure is Kabila App. They're doing some really cool stuff, and they had some announcements this week. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Manu and the team at Kabila, they've done a fantastic job in building and delivering on these tools. They've created a platform for NF tooling which really leverages sort of the full suite of the Hedera token service. Bringing down any friction for creators. You've got no code art. You can create no code art. You can create NFTs. You can create FTs. But you can also do things like token freezing. They've got their own way of doing sort of airdrop, different things, workarounds for different friction points. Alongside that, they've also built an incredible Spanish community that's growing. If you just look at the foundation announcement of Kabila's platform, if you look at how many comments it has from Spaniards, from different community members in the NFT ecosystem, they're clearly really well revered and doing a great job in building a community around their platform. So yeah, hats off to Manu and the team over there. They're constantly delivering, and they really deserve that publicity though.
And they fit in so well with the Hedera community. As you said, they're welcoming. They're just great ambassadors for the space. So shifting gears a little bit, I know last week we talked about some of the actions by the SEC, some of the regulation around staking. This past week, we got some time with the general counsel of the HBAR Foundation, George. He came on our Twitter space and he talked about what some of his thoughts were around it. Now, of course, none of this is the opinion of the HBAR Foundation. This is only his personal opinion, but I thought it was good to hear. So listen in. George, can you give us your professional perspective on the Kraken enforcement action taken by the SEC and regulation on staking in general?
Thanks, Brandon. Before I jump in, I just want to say, like you referenced, none of this is legal advice. It's just my take, and it's definitely not the position of the foundation. But thanks for having me. And ideally, I'd like to give you my unprofessional take, because this was wild. It really caught me a little bit off guard. So the SEC settled Kraken, and as part of that settlement, Kraken has to pay $30 million in a fine and agree to halt its staking program in the United States. Looking back at this, this seems to be right in the line of the cases that the SEC has been bringing, kind of related to like lend programs at other exchanges, and you've got like BlockFi settlement and the Celsius action. So it seems to fall right in line with that. So because this is a settlement, it doesn't really have that precedential value, but we can learn from it. At least we can glean what the SEC's thinking is through what it says in the complaint and what it points to make its argument that Kraken's staking program was an unregistered securities offering. Things that, and keep this in mind, that with the settlement here, the facts as stipulated by the SEC have not been tested, and it's just one side of the coin. So Kraken has not been able to put out a statement against it. So take what the SEC says with a grain of salt. But the SEC pointed to things like Kraken aggregating investors' crypto assets, Kraken purporting to offer stakers benefits that are not available to investors who stake on their own. This is an interesting point, because it seems like the SEC is making a distinction between the staking program that Kraken was running versus individuals staking into a proof of stake network. In addition, they pointed to Kraken determining the returns for each of the staking pools that they operated and not the underlying blockchain protocol. None of these factors are likely to be dispositive, but I think as we try to understand what the SEC is saying here and what this implies for other proof of stake, the networks or offerings, we have to take them into account. As far as the precedential value of this settlement, there really is none. Like I said, this is just one side of the story. These the facts as the SEC presented them have not been tested and will not be tested in court. So we can view it as guidance or just as leisurely read.
All right, George, one question. You said the perspective of the SEC, but there's some dissent within the SEC. What are your thoughts on the dissenting opinion from pretty much the number two at the SEC, Hester Pierce?
Yeah, Crypto Mom, she got it spot on. It was very succinct and to the point. What I think is most frustrating, Hester Pierce, she pointed it out, is that the SEC keeps saying, hey, crypto companies, come talk to us, register, and then we'll figure it out. Here, it's questionable whether Kraken could even register this product. So there really is no path to registration. So it's a lose-lose situation for a lot of companies in the space. One thing that I just want to quote Commissioner Peirce when she says at the end, which I think is really valuable, a paternalistic and lazy regulator settles on a solution like the one in this settlement. Do not initiate a public process to develop a workable registration process that provides valuable information to investors. Just shut it down. In other words, what she's advocating for is, let's have a formal rulemaking process. Let's bring all the crypto companies in on the fold. Let's discuss how to regulate the space, in particular staking program. That's what she's saying should have been the process, instead of go after that program, shut it down, and use that as that enforcement action as your way to put the industry on notice. But really, it doesn't put the industry on notice, because like I just said, that the complaint, everything that it says there, you have to take it at face value. Also, there's no way that, as the complaint reads, all these staking as a service providers or programs are unregistered securities offerings. There's just no way that's true, and we'll have to test that out. So we'll just have to see, for example, what Coinbase does if something happens around there.
What do you think the impacts are for Hedera native staking in this regulatory environment?
I'm not sure that there are many impacts. I think, at least from my reading, first of all, taking a step back, Hedera really, really went out of its way from the beginning to try to do things right, even in an uncertain world, right? And that's the same, that goes also to staking. So the way it's developed its program, it's not unforeseeable. It was never unforeseeable that staking could be met with regulatory scrutiny, especially, I mean, we all heard about it when Ethereum was going from proof of work to proof of stake and all the dialogue around whether that's going to change its regulatory standing. So Hedera was aware of this and structured it in such a way that it put itself in the best position possible to not have its staking program or staking function be in any way an unregistered securities offering. Some of the things that I'll point to in the complaint that I think make sense is the fact that it seems like the SEC is making a distinction between staking as a service providers, in other words, custodial centralized players that pool individuals or investors' funds, and as a result of their actions or their efforts, generate profit and then use those profits to pay out these rewards. That's different than, say, just somebody that's providing access to the smart contract for staking, and it's just a process server. They're not really doing anything; it's just a front end. At least from this action, I think that Hedera's proof of stake system is fine.
So what George had to say was certainly encouraging when it comes to Hedera native staking, but we'll certainly keep an eye on this going forward. So another thing that came out this week, it was a little bit delayed, but Shayne and the team from Messari got on and talked about the Q4 report from Messari. I did grab a clip from Shayne. He had some interesting insights about decentralization, about what some of the things from the Hedera Governing Council are building. So let's listen in.
I think it's important that when we talk about decentralization, to be specific about what we mean. We see various things being said in the community because we've got enterprise organizations on our council that in some way we're still very centralized. And I think there's two separate categories of decentralization that are important. And Mance and Lehman have been talking about this since the beginning of time. And so I'm just leveraging in many ways their words and hoping to be able to describe it adequately here. The two separate categories of decentralization are one, governance, and then second, transaction ordering. And so for governance, how many different entities, and this is people or organizations, are involved in making decisions on the product roadmap, the pricing of services, payment of rewards, or other governance related decisions? And then as importantly, are all of these entities known by name, or can they be anonymous? If they're anonymous, there's no way to be able to tell and determine how decentralized the governance truly is, because the same anonymous actor could have multiple machines, right? Therefore, consolidating voting power amongst a few. For example, if voting rights are associated with a governance token, as an example, then a single actor can increase their influence by buying or earning additional tokens, which leads to the consolidation of rights and increased centralization. So for us, where we've got 39 term limited organizations, all of them are known organizations. We publicly announced them, right? In addition to that, all of the council members' minutes are publicly disclosed. They're actually hashed on Hedera using the consensus service. And each member then has a single vote to ensure fairness, stability, and truly decentralized governance making. Even in the LLC membership agreement, the companies must sign to join the council, and it must be publicly hashed on the consensus service. So this is very, very different than any other layer one in the industry. So then when you take the second point, which is transaction ordering, what's the minimum number of entities required to the order of transactions on the network? So at least in 2021, I'm not sure about 2022 if this had changed much, but Bitcoin had a handful of mining organizations, so often 5 or fewer, that controlled more than 50% of the hashing power of the network, which is enough to dictate the order of transactions. So as of 2021, just 3 mining pools controlled 47% of its hashing power. 2 mining pools control almost 48% of Ethereum's hashing power. So when you think about that, both claim to be permissionless as an advantage. I'm just simply not sure that it's an advantage. If the network allows anonymous node operators, then it's impossible to know to what degree any given entity controls the hashing power of the network. So now, setting that stage for us, we've been in phase one for a while. We've moved into phase two, or moving into phase two. Phase one for us was requiring more than 2/3 of the council to agree on the ordering of transactions. And every council member has equal weight in their vote. So every council member is publicly known by name, and we can say for certain that the transaction ordering is decentralized. This is already, with that instance, more decentralized than Bitcoin and Ethereum. Phase two is going to add publicly identifiable community nodes, and many of you know that, and Lionel can speak to this to the extent he would like. Community nodes was a bit delayed, but we still are very focused on making sure that community nodes are able to come to the network, and only there will there be a high degree of certainty that consolidation of stake is unlikely as anonymous nodes are added to the network. So both the Hedera network and its governance model and technical ordering of transactions was designed from the ground up to embody the ideals of sustainable decentralization. So to that end, the last point I will make is that as we continue to decentralize, we've added a council member in Q4, Aberdeen. Aberdeen is a asset management company. August of last year, they had acquired a stake in a company called Archax, which is the UK's first regulated digital security exchange, as a part of their overall strategy to continue to tokenize their funds. The second part of that was to then become a part of a DLT because of the structural inefficiencies that existed in the fund management industry. And they want to tokenize their money market funds, their real estate funds, and we're excited to see what they do. They've already been instrumental. They've jumped right in, actively participated in all the council meetings, the subcommittee meetings. They've made introductions to some very big financial organizations, to us, to the HBAR Foundation. And so we're excited about their engagement. And while it's not Q4, it is big news that I'm sure everybody is aware of now, which is in Q1, we did announce Dell having joined the council. Large, incredibly large organization. Much of the internet runs on Dell. And so for them, it was really important to join something like Hedera because they have already been engaged in this idea of data provenance. They believe that there are, this next year, there are going to be, 30 billion devices across the world, over 2.5 million applications. And the idea of data and data provenance, its origin, where did it come from? Where has it moved? How has it changed over time? They wanted to create this data confidence fabric. And so to do that, they initially seeded, along with a few other organizations, something called Project Alvarium, which is a framework and an SDK to build a data confidence fabric, more generally speaking, a trust fabric, to making sure that the data from devices and applications is measurable with certain trust characteristics. Imagine the amount of data that we generate each and every day, and that using something like a DCF, a data confidence fabric, and being built on and supporting a blockchain ledger like Hedera is incredibly important. And so we're excited to have them aboard.
Yeah, so one cool thing that I saw this week was that, obviously HBAR has been trending for various different reasons. But when you go onto Lunar Crush, you can see how many social mentions a coin has had across Twitter. It has its old alt rank mechanism of ranking coins, and it has the market cap, the price. And so I put in data for XRP, obviously Cardano, Polygon, Polkadot, Avalanche, Chainlink, Stellar, Near, Quant, and DAC. We basically found out that over the last week, whilst Hedera is the 7th largest there by market cap, it was the first by alt rank, i.e. their way of measuring the most engaged, the most fastest growing, the highest, the sort of strongest quality projects, but also 4th by social mentions. So despite being, considerably further down the list by market cap than some of them, sort of Cardano, I believe, is ranked 5. Hedera is currently at about 31. despite that, our community is obviously extremely strong. For us to only be 4th on that list rather than 7th is pretty amazing, and that's a testament to how engaged our community is, but also how fast it's growing rather. So I'm excited to see community continue to grow and us continue to go up those leaderboards.
So, Zep, the other thing that I thought was interesting this week was another one of those fantastic gossip about gossip episodes, and this one was focused on Brett McDowell. It goes into his experience and why it makes him a good fit as chairperson of the Hedera Governing Council, and it also went into his experience in some of the meetings at the actual World Economic Forum event. So let's get some of his insights.
I think there's probably 2 themes I would highlight in my career that led to and makes for a good fit here at Hedera. One is the consortia building. So I've been involved in industry groups, either as a participant representing my employer, largely in technology innovation, most of the time, specifically to either driving a innovation into becoming a global technical standard for the whole internet community to take advantage of and use. Sometimes it's been around driving policy changes, again, for the benefit of the entire internet community. And along the way of building different consortia, such as Liberty Alliance, Kantara Initiative, FIDO Alliance, DMARC Working Group, and all the others that I've had a hand in. Well, the theme that ties them all together is the second thing I would call out, and that is digital identity, specifically around privacy and security. Between building consortia, getting technology companies, especially competitors, together in the same room to build consensus and find the self-interest, enlightened self-interest, where we want to share this technology with the world to grow a pie, and then we can compete with each other on that slice of the pie. That's been a theme throughout my career, and then specifically working in digital identity and cybersecurity for the most part, and really happy to bring those 2 themes together here at Hedera, obviously building the Hedera Council and working with them to find that consensus, but also helping them put their efforts behind industry standards and public policy changes, which kind of brings us back to why I was at the World Economic Forum. So we've been members of the World Economic Forum for a number of years, but this year we were actually invited to participate in the meetings directly, and in part because I was invited to participate in the Digital Identity Initiative panel and asked to bring kind of a historic context to digital identity, going from the first kind of personalized websites and being able to start logging into websites back in 95-ish, all the way through identity federation and what Web3 promises with decentralized identity. So that was my role, but I also got to attend a number of other sessions. And this year we were also invited to be what's called a unicorn member. And that put me into a community. So one thing that the World Economic Forum does that's different from what normally would be a conference experience is they build communities, specifically named and curated communities of stakeholders. And so Hedera finds itself in what's called the unicorn community and technical pioneers. So that was a fantastic experience in working with lots of other industry leaders running companies for the most part, some organizations, but building community, making those connections, building relationships, and then engaging on some strategy work in smaller sessions, really small rooms, maybe 12 to 15 people. Again, that's not typical at a conference, but the really small meetings where we got into, okay, what are some of the strategic priorities that the World Economic Forum wants to focus on when it comes to Web3, crypto, and blockchain. The meetings are held under Chatham House rules. That's the level of confidentiality that's involved, simple Chatham House rules. And so some of the themes that we engaged in, some sessions were very large. It's more, and it was even broadcast to all the members over video. That's really listening to a panel give a talk. So I attended a few of those. focusing on things like central bank digital currencies. And in the smaller forums, we got into, again, more detailed on CBDCs and what kind of the market needs next from a thoughtful, deliberative body like the World Economic Forum. And we identified some things that we thought were missing deliverables that might provide guidance to the central banks, and also maybe some missing dialogue for the innovators to listen to the central banks and what their pain points really are versus what they might be presumed to be. So really good conversations about coming together, technology companies and central banks around what that looks like. And in general, happy to say that one of the themes that I believe is an outcome of some of the smaller room discussions with the leadership around blockchain, crypto, and Web3 has been to shift the focus from what the technology could be used for and focus on what the technology is being used for. And that was sort of summarized as shifting our focus away from use cases, which almost implies the theoretical application of a technology to a problem, and really use the terms case studies and hold ourselves to that bar of highlighting, discussing, and promoting and advocating case studies. So that we make it clear to policymakers and companies that haven't yet taken advantage of Web3 technologies that this is solving real world problems already and pain points you might have. And so take another look at this, turn away from the hype, turn away from the theoretical, and focus on the practical and what's already being done. They want to really identify blockers, in particular, any policy blockers. Is there something governments can be doing? So we haven't really got into this dimension of the World Economic Forum, but they have, I believe, a keen role to play in putting public and private sector together in collaborative dialogue. These digital identifiers, when we say digital identity, people are going to hear person identity, right? That's what they're going to think. They're going to think kind of identity card in my wallet, and what's my name, other attributes of my identity. But we're seeing a great use case on Hedera today of decentralized identifiers and verifiable claims that have nothing to do with human identity. It is Internet of Things use case. I should say case study, because it's actually happening live in production today. And, it's easy to point to the highest volume use case on our network right now, Atma.io, and their use of the Guardian open source policy management engine, which is great for any kind of tokenized end-to-end workflow. And it's using digital identifiers and verifiable claims. Was this the use case people had in mind when they spec'd out DIDs and BCs? No, it's not. But it's a great application of the use case. And this is the kind of storytelling we need the WEF to engage in, highlighting what's actually happening with the technology, even if it might be a novel or unexpected use of the technology, and how to bring those benefits to other situations where they're not yet enjoying the benefits of Web3, especially in the historic context of coming off the heels of 2022, when this technology was associated with fraud and corruption itself. Ironically, since this is proof of action, reg tech at its best, anti-corruption technology under the hood. So it is ironic that that happened. It happened in good old-fashioned fraud. It was not a use of the technology. It was not even an abuse of the technology. It was an abuse of trust that was put into institutional intermediaries instead of trust that was left to a trustless public key cryptography ledger. I'm certainly no expert on the World Economic Forum. This is our first real deep engagement with the World Economic Forum on practical projects. But I am very optimistic that they do have the convening authority and the reach to put stakeholders together, especially public and private sector stakeholders together in a constructive dialogue so that society benefits from these innovations while society also protects itself from the worst abuses surrounding these innovations.
All right, Zep, we have to go to another corner of the Hedera ecosystem, gaming. We've seen Liithos continue to do an outstanding job at promoting their products. And the one thing that I thought was fascinating this week was that it wasn't just Hedera people that were getting excited, but actual gamers that were getting excited about some of their comic books. And you can see right here a self-described gamer who was running through his thoughts on what the comic book has to offer. What do you think about what we're continuing to see come out of Liithos?
The mainstream adoption of gaming will happen when the quality fulfills the taste of existing Web 2 gamers. That might be in very strong mobile games. It also is very likely to be in a real AAA game that takes off. And obviously, like we say each time, Liithos has that caliber of person behind it. Michael McDowell, ex-Last of Us, Uncharted, Days Gone with John Garvin, ex-PlayStation for 30 years collectively. And so it only makes sense that, these sort of waves are starting to emerge through things like their comic books, through things like, Michael Lee, that more eyes are coming in and just taking notice of what is being built here, especially while, now at the moment we're seeing The Last of Us trending on Twitter almost at least every Sunday or Monday when the new episode comes out. But just, even midweek, that show is taking off. So that show itself has, got so many new viewers. I'm sure a lot of people are probably buying the game now. And if you dig into the game, you'll clearly find Michael Munbauer as one of the lead figures there. So, the more success that show actually has, the better for us. And the more bullish I feel about Liithos and the first IP, which is Ashford.
And it's the entire Hedera gaming space that's doing well. And one of the fan favorites from our space is Earthlings. So I caught up because they had some new assets that came out. They want to show us the process they're going through while they're building this game. So we caught up with Patrick from Earthlings to give us some more information. Welcome back, Patrick. Can you update us on some of your latest trailers that you just put out?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I would love to. We just threw out the Pegasus trailer that you saw. Actually, it's more of a build scenery where I show what we are building on the back end. The thing is, we threw it out even though it's far from finished, because we saw that some people were asking if we were also programming and not only building scenery and buildings. That was actually in the same week that we heard these things that I was showing this gameplay trailer to my team, and they said, wow, that looks awesome. Quinten and I said, no, it doesn't. We still need to do a lot of stuff on this trailer, on this scenery actually, and gameplay. But they really wanted to show it anyway. And they said, yeah, well, just explain what we need to still upgrade and what we need to work on. And then people will see at least we're building. So yeah, people really loved it. They liked it a lot. So we were happy that we did. Weeks before that, we were already working on animal behavior, the wolf, how they act in packs and circle you and attack you. We used the bear, by the way, for that, because the bear was already rigged and animated, but it is for the wolf, because bears don't come in 10, 20. So another thing that we are working on, and that's one of my favorite animals, is the crab. We have several versions of that. We have a small one that you will see in the game just walking around. And this is also something that we're working on, because you may encounter a group of animals and one will stick out. The one that sticks out, it's bigger, it's faster, it's coming towards you more. So then that's the one that you can catch as an NFT sidekick animal. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a bit of gameplay in there as well. So not just go to it, tame it, and it's yours, which you see in a lot of games. We want to make a bit of a game out of that as well. So yeah, we're doing a lot of this stuff. A lot of gameplay programming on the back end, and not just building scenery. But we still need to continue that as well, because we've got a very big gameplay to make.
So these latest trailers, the reason why you put them out is some pressure from the community?
Well, I wouldn't say pressure. It's just we listen to the community. So if people say, yeah, are you building? And we pick that up, then yeah, I think it's our responsibility to show them that we are indeed building something, and not just programming a gameplay as well, and not just building houses and forests and landscaping and stuff.
Sure. So Zep and I covered another impressive thing that you guys had going on, and that was your land sale. Can you give us some more details on how that went?
Yeah, that went very smooth actually. Hats off to Headstarter. They did a great job there. We had no stress whatsoever because everything went so smooth. So that was amazing. Even though we had a big list of things that we wanted to implement in there. So that was great. We did a stamp mint actually first. There was a 10 HBAR stamp mint to celebrate our partnership a bit. But also, it had the same functionality as the land sale. So you could see it as a sort of test run, but we already strongly believed that they were the right people for doing this, and they proved, they were, because it all went great. We sold out quite fast, but also, of course, we need to show now what people bought. So we were also already working on the background on the sceneries for the villages and the towns, where you will see the town center and the land plots and stuff. So that's something that we hope to throw out soon as well, so that people really see what they bought. So that's going to be exciting as well when we throw these scenes out.
Yeah, that was one thing. Headstart must have done a great job because I didn't hear any complaints. Everybody seemed to get exactly what they wanted. So good job to them. What else can we expect from Earthlings in the weeks and months to come?
Yeah, lots, of course. As I just said, we're throwing out some new sceneries and also programming. We're going to keep throwing out these programming clips because we did get some very good response to that. So we're going to do that more often. But also, we're still hiring people on the back end. For instance, we have a sketch artist now. The way we worked till now is Tatjana and I. We make these mood boards, get some references online and copy paste them together to see what we want to have, and then throw them to the 3D artists. But we see that this works better if we first make it into a very nice sketch. For instance, the main city tower, we made a sketch out of that, and that worked very well actually. And we're now also testing that out in 3D. But this is not the final result. It's going to look better than the sketch that we have now, because we're going to do more add-ons as well. We did the same for the rigid airship that we're building to fly from Europe to America, for instance. That's going to be a very big one. So that's where we see the strength of having a sketch artist in the team as well. So that was amazing. What more? Well, the floating islands. We already have the floating islands, but we never threw them out because we now see, because we're growing as well, that we can even improve a bit more on the sceneries there. So we're working that out now as well, hoping to have them finished in a couple of weeks. We'll see, because it's very hard to put a time frame on these things. I've learned that. Latest little news is we threw out the upgrade of the white paper that we just did that today. What's new? We're just going to keep on building, and let's hope that we are going to keep on impressing with what we're going to bring out. So we'll just continue.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really neat about this is we get to see like the inner workings of your process. You get to tell us about how all that stuff is going. So it's just fun to go on that journey with you. Patrick, thank you so much for swinging by and giving us an update.
Thank you for having me again. See you next time.
So another thing we've seen this week, building on Paul Barron's video on Hedera last week, where he describes Hedera as a top 3 project to enable the mainstream enterprise adoption of crypto, DLT, blockchain, hashgraph, Web3, whatever you want to call it. He had a interview with Mance this week. And of course, Mance he knows how to talk the substance. He knows how to talk about exactly what Hedera is doing. He's got a great overview of the ecosystem. He's got a great overview of the technology. He's got a great overview of the trajectory of where Hedera is going. So, always one of the best ambassadors we could ask for when he goes on these shows. And so I'm sure a lot of people last week saw Hedera, saw Paul's excitement for Hedera as a project, and this really drove that home. So yeah, generally just great to see these influencers, reporters, whatever you want to call them, particularly on YouTube actually, and across Twitter, starting to understand the stability, the promise of Hedera in an increasingly turbulent crypto industry that Hedera continues to deliver. And it's great to see that being picked up by figures like Paul Barron.
Yeah, we're doing better in the media all the time, but one place that Hedera wasn't mentioned is in a CoinMarketCap article that was highlighting transactions on Solana and why they have so many more than other platforms. And of course, Hedera is in the #1 spot when it comes to transactions right now with a real world value add use case. So the Hedera community jumps all over this. They actually had some funny things that they came back with. I actually reached out to the author of this, Ivan. Certainly nothing against him, but it was interesting what he came back with. He said, for anything TPS related, reach out to CoinMarketCap directly. I got this on my table and wrote accordingly. I frankly don't care who has the most TPS and find it hilarious people get worked up about it. So of course, it just sounds like he's trying to do a job here. I guess CoinMarketCap wanted him to write this story. So certainly nothing against him. He's just trying to do a job. But I do think transaction volume is important. What do you think?
I think I didn't actually read the article, but I understand that the general thesis was that, no one's delivering on that amount of TPS, that Solana's TPS is inflated. But, what they don't understand is that the Hedera consensus service is, if they're not aware of it, which they will be actually, I'm in a Telegram chat with the CoinMarketCap team or someone from it. So hopefully we can get something resolved there. But a lot of people don't understand is that Hedera consensus service is every single transaction is a real world paid for transaction because it drives real world value. It has a price tag because it achieves real world value. And that real world value is the fair ordering of events immutably in a decentralized fashion to enable data integrity and the reduction of things like fraud. And, that stretches from using it within the Guardian, using it within the Hala systems, using it within proven DB. It can be used for everything. In any instance where you need a shared source of data, which is immutable, which is trusted, which is highly secure, there it is. It's a service. It's like a notary service, as you said before. And so every single Hedera consensus service is a real world transaction facilitated by DLT uniquely. And it is a great service. Hence, why companies like Avery Dennison are paying to use that service.
Sure, of course. And that is why, the transaction volume is important to us. As you mentioned, people pay for it, right? So it's revenue for Hedera to be able to use to continue to build out the network, to incentivize nodes, to incentivize token holders, and so forth. Now, the next thing we wanted to cover is it already time for Eth Denver again?
It looks like it. Yeah, time flies unfathomably fast in the Hedera ecosystem. Background to Eth Denver. We have the Hedera team hosting a sort of appetizers and drinks and cocktails with the developer DAO team, with the main interest of encouraging developers to build on networks and further Web3. And importantly, that's cross-chain. They've got a big following. I think they've got about 80,000 on Twitter. They've got a big ecosystem of developers. And so to see, of course, we know that Hedera is really trying to attract as many developers as possible. Hedera is doubling down on developer relations, on encouraging developers into the ecosystem. And to see this relation being forged with developer DAO and having this drinks together, not only are we going to get Hedera enthusiasts to this drinks, but hopefully Ethereum enthusiasts, cross-chain enthusiasts, will be able to see the power of the hash graph and the new EVM or Solidity smart contract service. So yeah, all around, hopefully there'll be some new friendships, new partnerships forged there, and I'm looking forward to the feedback there.
Yeah, it's great to see the Hedera presence continuing at that event. So let's go ahead and get into some network analysis. All right, so starting off, we have 48 million transactions over the past 24 hours, so that's pretty consistent. The smart contracts have bumped up a little bit, especially with the launch of the Pangolin DEX. And of course, the big story this week is we crossed a total of 4 billion transactions on the Hedera network. Now, of course, these crosses of the billion transaction milestones were a lot bigger deal in the past. It took us 8 months to get to the first billion. It only took us 3 weeks to go from 3 to 4 billion. So I'm actually not going to cover this that much until we get to 10 billion transactions. What do you think about the excitement around crossing 4B?
For so long, we were waiting for that 3 billion number, and the step function, that loathsome word, has finally happened. And even today, actually, I think the testnet was ramping up to about 4K TPS. So it seems like the Hedera builders have got something else up their sleeve. I don't know what that is, but clearly something is being tested at a large scale on Hedera's testnet. So I'm looking forward to those numbers stay steady and hopefully even increase at some point. But I'm pretty content where we are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to time to consensus, we're still at just under 5 seconds. Account creation is still strong. And moving down to the fungible tokens, we have the usual suspects of Energy Trade Token, Wrapped HBAR, Sauce, DOVU, USDC in there. And one of the things that was exciting this past week was Galaxy had their airdrop. What did you think about that?
Yeah, so the team at Galaxy, we've known for a while that they're very serious about what they're doing. They're a serious team with a serious ambition, a serious drive, which is to bring Web3 into the creator economy and really pioneer the creator economy on Hedera. And so the Galaxy Foundation exists. You've got the Galaxy DAO and you've got Galaxy Inc. And so the Galaxy DAO is governed by any holder of the Galaxy token. That's what enables you to participate in the future of that network. What's being built, network updates, treasury management, so on and so forth. And I think one important thing to note is that Galaxy is one application that they're developing under Galaxy Inc. to leverage this infrastructure that will be governed by this DAO. So they've got big plans for Galaxy. Galaxy App is the first iteration of what they're really ramping up there, and it seems we're getting closer to launch there. And for the community to get that airdrop, I thought was really cool. Rewarding everyone for their patience there. And I'm excited to see who they've onboarded, and when that app really launches in full swing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And moving on down to our NFTs, we see Asphalt is making a really big mark. You can see their all-time mints, and they're really high. We can see pandas in there. We see zombies as well, and we see the Hashgraph naming service. Seb, is there anything else you'd like to pass on as far as NFTs this week?
So Orbis, who we've been doing cross-chain spaces with on Mondays, started off on Ethereum. I've done a great job integrating with Hedera, getting new faces, new names, new eyes into the Hedera NFT ecosystem. They've launched the first part of their project on Hedera. I believe that was last night for the whitelisting for the HBAR variants, and I think the full launch is tomorrow for the open public. And yeah, they've been a pleasure to cooperate with, to host these spaces with. They've been great in putting us in contact with various ecosystem participants, including actually Scott Page, who is the saxophonist of Pink Floyd, of Supertramp, of Toto. He was in one of those spaces. He's now got a Hedera wallet, a Hashback wallet. So she's just been amazing at connecting us all. And I'm really excited for her future on the Hedera network.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So our NFT space is still doing a fantastic job, but DeFi was taking off a lot this week as well. So let's check that out. So the big news this week was definitely the launch of HBAR rewards on Pangolin. They only have 5 pools as of right now, but as you can see, the rewards are pretty impressive. HBAR PBAR, and PBAR is their native token, has an APR of nearly 900%. Now, rewards start low, and there's a 2-day waiting period before you get that maximum APR. HBAR HBAR-X is at 66%, USDC HBAR is at 470%, USDC PBAR is at 850%, and USDC Tether is at 460%. Now, there has been some user interface issues, so be patient with the platform, but as far as I know, all indications are that the smart contracts and everything when it comes to the Hedera network is working fine. And the last I saw, Pangolin has about $5 million total value locked. Saucer Swap is still sitting at the top with about $30 million total value locked. And looking at their farming rewards, HBAR USDC is at 54%, HBAR Sauce is at 35%, and HBAR HBAR-X is at 15%. So as you would expect, Pangolin has a pretty good premium. And like HeliSwap, they had 30 million HBAR for their rewards on top of their native token rewards. Moving on to Saucer Swap LP rewards, HBAR HBAR-X is at 1%, Sauce HBAR is at 3%, and USDC HBAR is almost 13%. These are pretty good numbers, and that's not surprising considering Pangolin came online and people are moving liquidity around. The big news this week for HeliSwap is they've started their lock drop. In total, they're going to give out 20 million Heli tokens. That's their native token. And so far, about 4.7 million HBAR have been deposited. And right now, that gives us a price of about 2 cents for the Heli token, which is already looking a little bit rich. But of course, that's not financial advice. As of recording, and this is Friday afternoon, February 17th, you have about 3.5 days where you can deposit your HBAR, and if that deposit amount goes up, the assumed price of that Hella token will also go up. And then the last 2 days of the drop, you only can remove HBAR, and that'll cause the price to come down. It's going to be interesting to watch this process. And moving on to the crypto and HBAR markets, Bitcoin is sitting at about 24,500. That's up about 12.5% over the past week and down about 1.5% over the past 24 hours. Not surprisingly, Bitcoin met resistance at $25,000, which was significant both in the last bull run and the bear market to follow. HBAR is up about 20% over the past week and is down about 3% over the past 24 hours. The HBAR market continues to look strong, and at the time of recording, we're sitting between 8.7 and 8.8 cents. Last weekend, we did see a run up to over 10 cents on Coinbase, but that was only because deposits and withdrawals were frozen, which inhibited the ability to arbitrage over and equalize price. After those deposits and withdrawals were allowed again, I think there was some confusion in the market. We did bump up on the world average market price to close to 10 cents, but then came back down a bit. Now, last week we talked about 8 cents being an area of resistance, and it looks like that might have flipped to support, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that the next time it's tested. And 10 cents is going to be our area of resistance. As far as things are looking in the macro, last week we had that really strong jobs report, which isn't great for the potential inflation going forward. And then just yesterday on Thursday, we got a hotter than expected inflation print. Not CPI this time, PPI, or Producers Price Index. Not surprisingly, after these two data points, the Fed had some hawkish rhetoric. And yesterday, going into today, risk assets like crypto and stocks were under pressure. But we've seen some recovery throughout the day on Friday, and I'm really happy with what we're seeing in the crypto and more specifically the HBAR market. All right, Zeb, that's pretty much all we have. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on to the community?
Just another big week for the ecosystem. I say this every time, but a big week across different facets of that ecosystem. Sustainability. I think the VPE news, the virtual power exchange, is huge. I think that is, at the forefront of what will be a massive, massive change in energy infrastructure and energy markets, in the way people can participate in those markets. But also we've seen Zoop, which is our metaverse side of our ecosystem, now at the NBA Allstar weekend with Barron Davis, talking about the new application, working with Metaverse Me, who've got a huge, huge influence in this sort of mobile metaverse space with these avatar figures. So we've just seen a big week across the board. And then we obviously was NFTs, Kabila App, amazing. We've seen Orbis. We've just had so much to cover as always, including not just us covering it, but us covering other people covering it, which is more eyes on the ecosystem, like Paul Barron, which is, that's like, some weird inception there going on. But great to see these other eyes, not only seeing, not only retweeting, but, actively engaging and talking about Hedera. And this is why we're trending. This is why more and more friendly faces in the ecosystem. This is why accounts are going up. That's why TVL is going up. And I'm sure it's only going to continue this momentum into the rest of 2023. Big week as always.
Well, we're certainly not going to have any problem finding content. I do encourage everybody to check out that LG interview. I'm also on Monday going to be updating Mike Maloney on the Hedera ecosystem, so that should be a fun one. That's pretty much all we have. We'll see you next week.